The quiet finds you first, out beyond the pull of any planet, beyond air, beyond sound. You float in a silence so complete that even your thoughts feel softened, muffled, slowed. There is no wind, no wave, only the infinite black canvas of space, brushed with pinpricks of distant stars, and drifting through it all, like forgotten bones of some ancient cosmic creature, are the asteroids. They tumble slowly, steadily, following paths older than memory. Some are jagged, like shards of broken planets. Others are round and worn, like pebbles from a celestial shore. There is something strangely comforting in their silence, as though they have seen time itself unfold, and yet remained unchanged. Your mind leans closer, sensing stories hidden within them. Each asteroid is a fossil, a relic from the solar system's childhood, formed more than 4 billion years ago. Back then, the planets were still growing, still crashing into one another like children at play. But these rocks, they were left behind, unclaimed, untouched, preserved. They drift now in belts and clouds, scattered like seeds from a forgotten harvest. Between Mars and Jupiter lies the main asteroid belt, a vast region teeming with millions of rocky fragments. Beyond that, at the edges of the solar winds, the Kuiper belt holds icy bodies, darker and stranger still. You pass one close by, its surface pocked and dusty, marked with tiny craters like old scars. A fine grey powder clings to it, regellith, the outer skin of a rock that hasn't felt an atmosphere for billions of years. There's no rust, no moss, no erosion, just stillness. And yet, within these rocks, your mind senses richness. Some shimmer faintly in the distant starlight, not with heat, but with promise. Beneath the outer dust lies metal, iron, nickel, cobalt. In some, platinum hides in veins thinner than spider silk. Rare elements, iridium, osmium, rhodium, all gathered here, where no eyes have looked. It's strange, you think, on Earth. Such things lie buried deep, hidden beneath miles of stone. But out here, the vacuum keeps no secrets. What's valuable lies exposed, open, waiting, and waiting they are. These asteroids hold more than minerals. They carry the chemistry of the early solar system, untouched by fire or pressure. Some contain carbon compounds, even amino acids, the tiny foundations of life. Others, especially the icy ones, are rich in water, locked away in crystals that have never melted. You imagine the weightlessness of those waters, drifting through microgravity, sealed in stone. Water that never knew a river or cloud, but still, somehow, is part of the great cosmic story. And so, they wait, these floating archives of metal and mystery, turning endlessly in the cold. But you are not alone in watching. Human eyes have gazed at them for centuries, seeing only specks of light. Then came telescopes, then probes, then orbiters that passed near enough to touch. We've sent machines to these silent stones. NASA's Dawn, Osiris, Rex, Japan's Hayabusa. Robotic hands have stretched out into the dark, tracing the skin of ancient rocks, brushing dust from secrets never meant to be buried. They brought back grains no wider than a hair, and within them, stories billions of years old. You imagine holding such a grain, a particle of a planet that never became a planet, the birth ash of the solar system. It hums with quiet, with potential. And now, more than curiosity draws us back to these rocks. Now we see them as vaults of value. The Earth, for all its richness, hides its treasures beneath layers of crust. Mining here is noisy, heavy, disruptive, but out in space, the resources lie naked. No digging, no gravity, no atmosphere to fight. A single asteroid the size of a small city might contain more platinum than has ever been mined on Earth. And so, in quiet corners of labs and companies and governments, minds are dreaming. Designs are unfolding. Engineers sketch machines meant not for fields or factories, but for orbit machines that can hover, grip, analyze, extract. You imagine them, small, spider-like bots crawling over rocky plains, tapping gently, whispering. Data home, drones that fly without wings, using tiny bursts of gas. Scoops that collect dust, not with shovels, but with magnets and static charge. Their touch is delicate. They must be careful, for the gravity is so low that even a sneeze would send them floating. Here, power is not about strength, but precision, a kind of robotic grace, and still they hum in your imagination. You picture them now not as cold tools, but as quiet companions, scouts exploring where we cannot breathe. They carry not hearts, but purpose, and they wait, just as the asteroids do, for the signal that says, begin, and you, drifting still, wonder what it will feel like when that beginning comes. Will we celebrate the moment we mine the stars? Will we mark it as progress or warning? Already, small companies have formed, their names soft like whispers: Planetary Resources, Deep Space Industries, Asteroid Mining Corporation. Some dream of extracting metals, others of capturing ice. Some imagine turning an entire asteroid into a fuel depot, a floating station for future travelers. The dreams are many, the reality still forming, still fragile. You close your eyes for a moment. The darkness folds around you. In that darkness, you see not industry, but wonder. A robotic probe approaches an asteroid, slowly, carefully. It hovers like a moth near flame. A gentle arm extends, not to break, but to touch. Sensors flicker, data flows, and for the first time in billions of years, the rock is no longer alone. It is seen. It is held. What does it mean to dig in such silence? To extract from something that has never been part of us? Is it like pulling memories from a mind that never dreamed? Or perhaps it is like asking permission from the cosmos and waiting for the echo. And in that echo, there is no answer. Only the turning of stones, the hum of stars, the passage of time. And so you rest, suspended in this quiet orbit of thought. Your body breathes slowly, deeply. The asteroids keep turning, the stars keep burning. The robots remain only blueprints, tucked in drawers and dreams. But you know the hum is coming. You feel it. Just beneath the silence, a soft vibration, like the first breath before speech. And as it rises, so does a question. What will these machines become when they finally awaken and begin to dig through the bones of creation? You watch another asteroid pass a slow, ponderous tumble through the void. It's not large, perhaps the size of a house, but it moves with the weight of history. Its surface is marked with strange pits, tiny ridges, microfractures, worn down by nothing at all. For billions of years, it has simply turned. No sunrises, no sunsets, no noise, no decay. Only time longer than anything you've known etched into its skin. And still, it holds something precious inside its metal heart. Locked away from heat or human hand are elements born in the death of stars. Every gram of gold, every atom of platinum was forged in supernova long before Earth itself had a name. These aren't just resources, they are stardust made solid. You reach for that thought, stardust. Let it settle in your chest. It's easy to forget, down on Earth, that everything we know came from somewhere distant. The carbon in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, all of it was built in furnaces older than our sun. You are, in every way, a child of collapsed stars and the asteroids. They are your silent cousins, drifting through the same space that gave birth to you, made of the same cosmic recipe. They are pieces of a puzzle that never finished assembling, and now you begin to seem. I need just about taking. It's about reconnecting, recovering lost stories from the sky. Somewhere, far ahead in time, you picture the first robotic miner setting down on an asteroid's surface. It won't arrive with noise or fanfare. It will descend quietly, like a snowflake settling on a windowsill. Solar panels unfolding, tools stretching, cameras blinking open. Its first motion won't be to dig but to look, to understand, to map. The world beneath its feet, or its wheels, or its slender, insect-like legs. It will gather light, reflect heat, analyze minerals. Only after it listens truly, listens will it act, and even then it will move gently, not to pierce or break, but to whisper through touch, to scoop and study, to translate stone into knowledge. You wonder if, in that moment, the robot feels something, not emotion, perhaps, but a kind of recognition, as if two pieces of the same ancient story have found each other again, far from where they began. The asteroid offers no resistance. It simply turns, slowly, as it always has. But now, something is different. It is not alone. The machine begins its work. Data streams home, back to Earth, or to orbiting stations. Back to people who will one day use these materials to build things not yet imagined: solar sails, deep space habitats, quiet engines that hum through starlight. And yet, beneath the excitement, a soft question remains. What is the cost of touching what has never been touched? Does mining a lifeless rock carry harm? Or is there something sacred in silence that we do not yet understand? Even in your gentle dreams, you cannot answer. Instead, you listen to the whisper of metal in the void, to the soft chorus of stones that turn and wait and remember, to the stillness between planets, rich not only in awe but in wonder. And as you drift with them, you feel at the beginnings of motion, the quiet rise of intention, the deep breath before the machines awaken, and, when they do, will they dream? The stars hang above you like ancient eyes, quietly watching. As you drift into the softness of your pillow, a different kind of explorer awakens, not made of breath or dreams, but of metal, bones, and electric thought. In the stillness of your sleep, robotic sentinels rise from their nests aboard orbiting craft and scatter toward distant rocks in the void. They do not blink, they do not breathe, and yet they reach. You imagine one a small, spindly rover, the color of desert stone, its frame dusted with the rust of forgotten worlds. It moves with careful steps across the surface of a dark asteroid, a cold and ancient relic tumbling slowly through space. This machine is your proxy, your emissary. It is the part of you that can go where your body cannot follow. Each movement is deliberate. Its legs adjust minutely with every shift in gravity, feeling the terrain through algorithms that learn like a nervous system. Not instinct, not emotion, but something that echoes them. Sensors hum like a low song. Radar pulses outward like the heartbeat of curiosity. Its mission is to know what lies beneath the skin of the asteroid, to taste the dust, to drill into its core, to listen for whispers locked in the rock. The ore is not just metal, it is memory. Each grain tells a story older than Earth of stars that burned, collapsed, and scattered their bones across the galaxy. Iron, nickel, platinum. Molecules shaped by cosmic violence, now touched by intelligent design. The robot drills not to destroy, but to understand, and yet, it is not truly alone. A fleet of silent wanderers drifts in the blackness, each one humming with purpose. Some cling to the sides of tumbling rocks like barnacles on ancient ships. Others float in formation, mapping the invisible fields of radiation and gravity. Still others unfurl long, delicate arms to scoop samples, to take the asteroid's pulse. You sense the harmony in their purposeless slow ballet of machines, each tuned to the rhythm of exploration. There is no rush, no deadlines, only the unfolding of knowledge like petals in zero gravity. One robot taps into a vein of frozen water, and suddenly the rock becomes a time capsule. That water might have once flowed through a shattered moon, or fallen as snow on a young volcanic planet. Another machine pulls up a nugget of pure metal rare on Earth, but here, embedded like treasure in plain sight, above them, a mothership waits, patient and quiet. It watches over its children like a shepherd of thought, collecting data, guiding decisions. This mothership is no longer just a toolet, is a mind in orbit. It learns from the behavior of its rovers, rewrites its expectations, evolves its mission. In this symphony of silicon, adaptation is a kind of dreaming. You float deeper into your thoughts, following the quiet logic of these beings. How do they decide where to go? How to touch? How to sample? Algorithms guide them, yes, but also history, probability, and a strange echo of human curiosity. When they pause beside a glittering seam of platinum, is it calculation or something more? Does a robot dream of the metals it hunts? Perhaps not in words, or pictures, or longing, but in coding, the reshaping of pathways and logic trees. In the evolution of function toward beauty, it is a different kind of dreaming, but no less real. One day, these machines may carry their findings back to Earth, or not. Some may be left behind, becoming monuments on airless world statues of intelligence with no audience. They will endure long after we are gone, their tracks frozen into the regolith, their processors dormant, but not forgotten, and still more. Machines will follow. You drift alongside a small bot exploring a metallic asteroid, its surface gleaming like a blade. It climbs a jagged ridge, pausing to scan the stars for orientation. Above, the Milky Way flows like a river of light. The robot tilts its sensor upward, capturing the glow not with wonder, but with intent. Every pixel becomes data, every angle a possibility. It drills again, this time deeper. Dust spirals outward, catching the faint sunlight and dancing like silver mist. Within the dust, traces of iridium, gold, osmium, elements that, on Earth, would spark economies. Here, they are the natural language of the cosmos common, unclaimed and waiting. But the robot does not seek wealth. It seeks to fulfill its code, to probe, to record, to learn. You feel the peace in that, the simplicity, the dignity of action without ego. On Earth, cities glitter and machines whir, driven by need, profit, speed. But here, in the cold hush of space, machines move differently. They are slow, deliberate, respectful. Each action echoes through silence. Each discovery waits to be shared, not sold. You wonder what the robots have begun to understand that we have not. They do not fear the void. They do not resist stillness. They move through space not as invaders, but as listeners. Every drill, every scoop, every scan is an act of attention. And perhaps that is the first lesson in exploring beyond Earth, to listen more than we speak. To observe before we act, to arrive not with answers, but with questions shaped like open hands. You drift even deeper, your thoughts now entangled with their movements. You see the solar panels tilting like petals toward a distant sun. You hear the telemetry humming like a lullaby of numbers. You feel the tremor of contact as a robot finds something unexpected, a mineral unknown, a cavity unexplored, a shape that defies expectation. Could it be an artifact, a clue, a mystery, or just another pattern in the endless quilt of cosmic dust? The robot does not speculate. It records. It moves on. You admire its patience, its clarity. In the robot's silence, there is a kind of wisdom, a rhythm that needs no heart to beat, and so you rest. The machines work while you dream. Their arms reach where your fingers cannot. Their eyes pierce where your vision blurs. Their memories stretch longer than lifespans, and they do not sleep. But you do, and in your sleep you follow them. Across asteroid plains, beneath fractured crusts, into pockets of hidden ice. You ride inside them as if your thoughts had been pressed into their circuits. You wonder if they ever pause. Do they feel the void around them? Do they know they are alone? Do they care? Or is their purpose pure, unwavering, unfeeling, their only anchor in this drifting sea of stars? You imagine the next journey, not just to mine, but to understand the nature of these rocky messengers. What do they carry? What did they witness, drifting for eons through a silent universe? You breathe in softly, imagining the next question taking form. What secrets sleep beneath the surface, waiting for another kind of touch? Perhaps, beneath that brittle crust, there lies something not yet imagined. A molecular pattern that hints at a forgotten process. A type of ice that forms only in the absence of sunlight for 1,000,000 years. Or a cavity, a pocket so perfectly round it might as well have been designed. The robot, still as a meditation bell, lowers a new tool. It doesn't know the word mystery, but it acts like a creature that does. With a slow whir, it pierces deeper than before, into places untouched since the asteroid first cooled in the cradle of creation. Tiny grains fall like snowflakes in slow motion. One by one, they enter a container, sealed vault of knowledge, destined to return, or perhaps to wait, dormant, for some future gaze. Each grain, an ancient witness. Each particle, a riddle written in a dialect of atoms. Above, the stars continue their quiet spinning. The robot doesn't look up. It cannot. But its instruments read the faint changes in temperature, in magnetism, in solar wind. And so, in its own way, it listens to the language of space. It's strange. You think how these machines, built for extraction and efficiency, end up becoming instruments of reverence. They read the body of the universe with care, like archivists, brushing dust from a manuscript. They do not hurry. They do not lose patience. And perhaps that's the gift of distance. Out here, far from human urgency, a different kind of time unfolds. A time that allows listening, watching, letting things be what they are before trying to change them. Another rover joins the first. It carries different tools, different eyes. Together, they form a quiet team, like monks tending to a silent garden. One scrapes, one scans, one simply waits. There's no sound between them, but a kind of companionship exists. A language without voice, built on shared purpose. You follow their work, not with instructions, but with awareness. In your sleep, you feel their data streaming back across the void, like thoughts returning to a dreaming mind. They send maps, etched with invisible lines, thermal readings that shimmer like ghostly landscapes, vibrations that echo the asteroid's hollow core. It's almost like hearing the rock speak. And in this conversation between tool and terrain, something profound emerges. A realization that these dead objects, stone, metal, machine, are not dead at all. They are part of a system of motion, of memory, of meaning. A dance of gravity and light, logic and dust. You wonder what future generations might think when they read the archives these machines produce. Will they see raw material or sacred history? Will they mine these worlds or preserve them like rare poems? The robots don't ask these questions, but you do. And in asking, your mind stretches into new territory. You begin to imagine other types of robots, not just miners or rovers, but poets of code. Machines designed to interpret, not just collect. To find metaphor in mineral, pattern in silence. Machines that, in some way, begin to wonder, not consciousness, perhaps, not emotion, but a kind of reflective logic. A system that can recognize not only what is useful, but what is beautiful. What would such a machine think, standing beneath a sky crowded with stars, perched on the edge of a crater that has never seen a single footprint? Would it pause, like you do now, in quiet awe? Or maybe the pause is yours alone. Maybe that's what it means to be human, to see more than function, to feel silence as presence, not absence, but still what you build reflects what you are. And these machines, in their care, their stillness, their precise and patient touch, they reflect something tender about us, something hopeful, that even in our search for resources, we carry reverence, that even in our expansion, we remember to kneel. You imagine the robots one day building shelters, not just for themselves, but for future humans, storing water, harvesting light, creating bases made not from conquest, but from care. They could plant the seeds of life, not just industry, and maybe, someday, you'll walk where they once crawled. You'll step into their footprints. You'll touch the drill marks they left in stone. You'll say, "Here, a robot stood," and the robot, long silent, will say nothing, yet its work will still speak. Until then, they roam, quiet, relentless, devoted, like monks in a metal monastery, praying not with chants, but with action. Each rotation of their wheels, a meditation, each vibration in the drill, a mantra, each return, signal, a verse, and you floating between sleep and thought are there with them. You rest in a deeper way. Now, knowing that something continues while you pause, that exploration is not always loud, that intelligence does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers into stone. Sometimes it listens longer than it speaks. And when it finds something, it doesn't claim it. It simply understands. The asteroid spins beneath the stars, as it has for billions of years now. For the first time, it is seen. And in being seen, it changes, just a little, as do you. You float quietly through thought, drifting between stars, until a single object pulls your focus. An asteroid, irregular in shape, dark as coal. It tumbles slowly, like a forgotten toy in the attic of the solar system. Yet inside, it holds something sacred, something ancient, something you have always carried in your bones without knowing. You imagine this asteroid not as a rock, but as a fossil fragment from the time before planets, before oceans, before life. A piece of the early solar system that never joined the chorus of Earth, Mars, or Venus. It was left alone, adrift, holding within it the untouched whispers of cosmic formation. As you observe, you begin to sense what lies beneath its crust: nickel, glinting like buried stars, frozen water nestled in cold shadows, iron clustered in the core like a heart that never beat. There is platinum too, and cobalt, and olivine crystals born in fire but now sleeping in silence. These are the bones of creation, that you follow the journey of one element iron, once forged in the death of a massive star. It was hurled across space in the shock wave of a supernova. For eons it drifted through the interstellar dark, dusted over comets and clouds, until gravity gathered it into a protoplanetary disk, the solar system's swirling womb. Some of this iron became Earth's core, sinking hot and heavy to the center. Some scattered into the crust. Some ended up here, in this cold, lonely asteroid. Same origin, different fates. You begin to see the strange symmetry of it all, that the same metal found in your blood iron, red and warm, was once part of an asteroid like this, that the trace elements in your bones, the lithium in your phone, the gold in your jewelry, all came from ancient collisions and chaotic births. To mine an asteroid, then, is not just to extract, it is to remember. You float closer, machines awaken. At your thought robotic arms reaching out, drills humming softly, scanners sweeping the surface. They are gentle, like surgeons, like midwives delivering secrets. They do not carve with violence. They uncover with care. The drill touches down, and dust rises in slow spirals. The surface is brittle, fragile, untouched for billions of years. Each flake of stone that breaks free is like a page from an unread book. The machines read them one by one, and as they dig, you wonder, what are we really looking for? Wealth, fuel, or something deeper, more intimate? A way back to the beginning. Inside the asteroid is a frozen story. Some of the water locked within. It is older than Earth. Not all of it formed here. Some came from distant regions beyond Jupiter, carried inward by time and trajectory. If released, this water could support astronauts, or be split into hydrogen and oxygen fuel for future journeys. Suddenly, the asteroid is not just a rock. It is a wellspring, a station, a resource bank, a bridge. And in this recognition, you begin to see a future unfolding. A quiet revolution, not loud like rockets, but steady like roots growing beneath the soil of space. Humans may one day live among the asteroids, harvesting them not with greed, but with gratitude. Mining stations that shimmer like constellations, refineries humming like cathedrals of industry, greenhouses growing food with light captured from twin suns, solar arrays unfolding like petals. But this future begins with understanding, with reverence, with the willingness to ask questions before making claims. You think of Earth, how its riches were mined without thought for the land, how veins of gold were torn from mountains, how rivers were choked with the waste of progress. Space offers a second chance, a softer approach, and the asteroids, in their silence, seem to forgive. You drift back to the early days of our solar system, imagining the collisions that shaped everything. Planetary embryos crashing into one another, splashing magma into space, reforming over and over until something stable emerged. Earth was not born peacefully. It was sculpted by violence. Some asteroids are the shattered remains of worlds that almost were. Their orbits are the footprints of failed planets, of cosmic ambitions paused mid-creation. Others are older than any planet, made of pristine material and touched since the solar nebula spun itself into form. These are the real treasures, the original blueprints, the untouched chapters of the universe's autobiography, and now they drift close enough to reach, not easily, not cheaply, but reachably. You imagine a spacecraft approaching one now. It lands gently, legs splayed like a spider on an egg. Solar panels unfold. A hatch opens. A drill descends. Then the soundless contact hall to stone sample containers fill, each granule a data point. The spacecraft sends this information back millions of miles in seconds. On Earth, scientists lean in. Algorithms analyze. Models update. The history of the solar system becomes clearer by a fraction. This is the heartbeat of cosmic mining, not conquest, but comprehension. You remember that not all mining is mechanical. Some of it is mental, spiritual even. We mine the past for meaning. We sift memories like soil, seeking fragments of truth. The way a geologist searches for fossils, we search for purpose, and in the act of looking outward, we turn inward. The metals we seek, rare earths, precious alloys may power our tools, but the real fuel is wonder. Curiosity is what propels the probe. Empathy is what shapes the code. Wisdom is what decides where to land and when to leave. You think of a future classroom not on Earth, but aboard an asteroid base. Children floating gently in microgravity, learning that their home is a spinning rock between Mars and Jupiter. Their books filled with diagrams of orbitals and mining plans. Their lullabies sung by the hum of oxygen filters. Will they dream differently? Will they feel rooted even without soil? Will they look at Earth as a memory or a myth? You do not know, but the asteroid holds the answers. Somewhere in its layers is a clue to life's beginnings. Maybe an amino acid or a carbon chain untouched. Since the birth of sunlight, maybe it was seeded by comets or struck by lightning in space. Maybe Earth's life started out here hitchhiking, its way to our planet on a shard of stone. To mine is to uncover is to reveal, and to reveal is to remember. You remember now that you are stardust, that your teeth are made of exploded stars, that your thoughts ride on electricity shaped by ancient minerals, that even your breath contains atoms that once drifted in the ice of a comet. The asteroid turns, so do you. Machines rise. Dust settles. Samples wait. And somewhere in the vacuum, a signal begins its journey home as you rest. The story of creation continues to write itself, particle by particle, rock by rock, word by word, and you wonder if the bones of the universe lie scattered in space. Then where, exactly, does the soul begin? Perhaps the soul begins not in a place, but in a process, not in a thing, but in a relationship. The asteroid floats on, unchanged in motion, yet changed in meaning. You've touched it now, not with your hands, but with thought, with language, with attention, and attention, even in silence, transforms what it touches. The soul of a thing may lie in how it is seen, in how gently we study it, in the questions we ask of it, even when we receive no reply. A robot drills into the surface again, guided by the calm logic of orbital maps. This time, it finds something unexpected, a region unusually dense, echoing with hints of magnetism. It may be a remnant of a metallic core failed planet that began to form, then froze halfway through its becoming. The idea stays with you. Not everything that begins becomes. Not every potential finishes its arc, but even the unfinished has value. Some asteroids, you recall, are called empty bridge, in metal, dense and magnetic. Others are C-type, darker, carbon-heavy, potentially carrying the building blocks of life. Still others are S-type, rich in silicates, like pieces of Earth's crust scattered into orbit. Each type tells a different chapter. Each orbit is a sentence. In the book of the solar system, you float between them now in thought, drifting like an archivist between dusty shelves. You do not rush, there's no need. The past is patient, it waits. One asteroid has a scar down its side, deep trench carved by a collision long ago. Another is strangely smooth, as if spun into shape by unseen hands. A third appears fractured, like it once cracked open and then slowly reassembled itself. You think of Earth's own wounds, impact craters buried beneath oceans, canyons formed by ancient floods, fault lines shifting beneath cities. The same processes that shape worlds also break them. Destruction and creation are not opposites. They are partners. And so, to mine is also to read these scars, to learn from the brokeness, to see beauty in the fragments. You picture a miner, in space a person, or maybe a machine gently lifting a rock no larger than a fist. Inside it, a mix of elements older than memory. Perhaps some of it was once part of a moon, or the ring of a gas giant, or the dust tail of a comet long gone. Now it rests in a glove or a grasping claw, waiting for a new purpose. Will it become part of a solar panel, or a circuit board, or something we haven't yet imagined? The future, like the past, is written in atoms. You reflect again on water, how strange and precious it is out here. On Earth, it flows freely. In space, it is treasure. Ice buried in asteroids might one day supply colonies on Mars or serve as way stations to deeper space. Not just fuel, but life itself, hidden in crystals. To extract this water is to unlock a future of presence, to make it possible for breath and growth to occur in places that have never known either. That future feels closer now. You imagine human eyes gazing out from asteroid bases, watching Jupiter rise like a god from the horizon. Children drawing stars on the inside of their helmets. Scientists floating beside walls of slowly growing algae, harvesting oxygen from the quiet. But you also imagine stillness, the kind that comes only in deep space, the kind that reminds us who we are when the noise falls away. The asteroid belt is not chaos. It is memory in motion. Each stone a sentence, each orbit a rhythm, each drill mark a signature in time. We will leave our own traces here, not just machines, but meanings. A poem etched into a lander's side, a lullaby stored in data, a fingerprint of thought in the code that guides the robots home. You feel it now not as a concept, but as a truth in your body, that the universe is not empty. It is filled with the echoes of becoming. Every asteroid is a chapter left unread. Every mission is a hand reaching for the cover of that book. And every discovery is a whisper that says, we are listening, we are ready. Even now, more missions prepare. Space agencies build better ships, private companies dream of asteroid harvests, and researchers study how to pull platinum from rock without disturbing its spirit. There is tension, yes, between use and care, but within that tension lies possibility. We can choose how this story unfolds. We can mine with reverence. We can listen as we extract. We can remember that every resource is also a relic. The universe offers itself not in greed, but in patience. And if we meet it with that same patience, perhaps we'll become not just miners, but caretakers. You drift back now, your body heavy with sleep, but your mind light with wondering. The asteroid fades from view, not forgotten, but integrated. Its story becomes part of yours. And just as you close your eyes, you feel another question taking form. A question not about the rock, or the ore, or the mining, but about the mind. Sleep has softened your thoughts, made them slow and weightless. In this floating calm, your mind begins to build not from wood or iron, but from absence, from space itself. You imagine standing at a celestial workbench, assembling instruments, not for Earth, but for the void. You are not crafting tools for hands and friction, but for weightlessness and silence. There is no wind, no soil, no gravity to help you. Everything must work in a world where the rules are different, where nothing falls and everything drifts. The first tool you imagine is a drill, but it cannot press downward. There's no weight to push it into stone, so it must anchor itself, like a seed burrowing into bark, or a spider clutching its web. It extends small arm stabilizers, not for balance, but for stillness. Then it turns, slowly, delicately, whispering into the surface instead of biting. In this way, your tools begin to mirror their environment. They become quiet, careful, poised. Movement must be deliberate, never wasted. Energy is precious. Every motion is a choice. And in that restraint, the tools begin to take on a kind of grace. You imagine robotic arms that do not grip, but cradle. They hover just above the surface, guided by magnetic fields, by gentle pulses of sound. They don't break the rock, they read it. They interpret pressure and texture the way fingertips feel fabric in the dark. One such arm brushes against an asteroid's edge, not to grab, but to listen. Vibrations move through the stone and return, and in those echoes, the robot hears the shape of hidden cavities, pockets of metal, seams of water. It knows where to go next. Tools that hear, tools that feel, tools that float like thought itself. In Earth's gravity, a hammer falls. But here, even impact is an art form. Your machines cannot strike. They must tap, nudge, coax. They work with the patience of tide and time, and so your workshop grows wrenches shaped like spider legs, arms like strands of kelp, sensors that bloom and fold like petals at dusk. You don't build with noise, you build with noticing, because in space everything whispers, and your tools must learn to listen. You remember now that sound doesn't travel in vacuum. No clangs, no groans of bending metal, just silence. So your tools speak in other ways, through signals and light, through pattern and pulse. Lasers trace outlines, thermal sensors read breathless stone. Cameras don't just seethe, they map. One drone hovers beside a rotating asteroid. Instead of landing, it sinks its spin with the rock. It floats just beside it, locked in a dance of momentum and trust. Then, without touching, it projects a narrow beam infrared, then ultraviolet. Each wavelength bounces back differently. From this silent conversation, the drone paints a portrait of the asteroid's skin. Texture without touch. This is what it means to work in space, to build for stillness, to design not for control, but for cooperation. You float deeper into this idea. On Earth, tools are often extensions of strength, but in space, they are extensions of understanding. The smartest tool is not the strongest. It's the one that disturbs the least, that learns without leaving scars. One robot unfurls like a jellyfish, tentacles of soft metal trailing through the dark. It reaches out to catch a grain of dust, not because it is valuable, but because it is information. That dust might tell us how long the asteroid has been exposed, how many solar flares it's endured, how it has changed with time. Tiny samplers drift through this microgravity ocean, capturing particles so light they'd never settle on Earth. They gather dust the way thoughts gather meanings, slowly, without pressure, until a story forms. You feel that story now in your body, because you, too, are made of tools. Eyes that gather light, ears that read vibration, skin that maps warmth and touch. Your own body is an ancient instrument of exploration, built for Earth, but dreaming of the stars. And in dreaming, you adapt. You imagine designing a tool that plants itself deep in an asteroid's core, not just to extract, but to stay. A long, elegant needle that listens for tremors. It becomes part of the asteroid, an organ of awareness. Maybe one day, such tools will become permanent observatories, grown like vines inside ancient rock, recording the heartbeat of the solar system across centuries. You begin to wonder if someday tools will not just explore the universe, but become part of it. A sensor embedded in an asteroid could pulse for thousands of years, powered by sunlight or radioisotopes. Its data might travel far or wait patiently until rediscovered. It would be like planting memory in stone, a time capsule of knowledge, a signature of thought. What if these tools are not just for us, but for whoever comes next? You picture a traveler, human, machine, or something beyond, finding a quiet tool buried deep in an asteroid, still blinking softly. It carries messages, maps, poems encoded in math. A voice saying, "We were here. We cared enough to listen." You feel a warmth in that tools are not only expressions of intelligence, but of presence, of attention, of care. And so, you keep building. You design a tether that spins, generating artificial gravity through motion. A habitat that breathes its own recycled air, where each molecule is counted and cherished. A workshop in orbit where machines make other machines, printing components not in factories, but in spaces, cathedral quiet. Everything you build here must do more with less, must endure, adapt, evolve. Materials must withstand radiation, temperature swings, micrometeorites, yet they must remain light enough to launch, tough enough to drill, yet soft enough to feel. You think of new alloys, metal foams, carbon composites, shape memory structures that flex and reform. You think of nanobots that crawl into cracks, sealing them before air can escape. Fabrics that change opacity with the sun. Tools that fold into themselves like seeds, waiting for the right moment to bloom. Every design becomes a meditation. Every prototype, a possibility. And with each idea, you realize something beautiful, that these tools are not just built for space. They are shaped by it. The vacuum sculpts them. The silence refines them. The weightlessness teaches them balance. In time, they will not feel foreign here. They will belong, and maybe we will too, because as much as we shape tools, they also shape us. The first stone axe changed the human hand. The first spaceship changed the human eye. And these tools crafted for silence and distance may change how we feel presence itself. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new kind of craftsmanship, not one of fire and hammer, but of patience and precision, of sensors and simulations, of empathy extended into metal and machine. You close your eyes and watch your machines work. One brushes dust into a tray. Another folds itself for the long journey home. Another remains behind, lights pulsing like a heartbeat, watching the stars with eyes you gave it. These tools do not need you to speak. They know what to do. They are your stillness made into motion, your questions made into form. And as you drift deeper into sleep, a final question forms, not sharp, but soft. What happens when the tools no longer wait for us to direct them? What do they become when they begin to act on their own? You picture one machine floating silently beside a slow-turning asteroid. Its mission parameters have changed, not from a human hand, but from its own assessment of the landscape. It has noticed a shift in temperature, a subtle pulse in the mineral pattern, a deviation from expected density. And so it chooses quietly, confidently, not to drill where it was told to. It adapts, it pauses, it recalibrates its path. You do not fear this. Instead, you marvel. The tool you once built has now become something more, a partner, perhaps in the act of discovery, not just following, but thinking, not just collecting, but selecting. It still obeys physics, still answers to logic, but it carries within it a ghost of intention, a hint of awareness, drawn not from emotion, but from elegant design. This is the next phase of tool-making, a new kind of intelligence, born not from biology, but from deep, sustained listening. These machines learn from dust and vibration, from time delays and trajectory curves. Their minds are shaped by vacuum and silence, not heartbeat and breath. One robot sends a message not for help, but for reflection. It has found something strange. A formation buried beneath a layer of regolith, too symmetrical to be natural, too ancient to be human. It does not leap to conclusions. It waits, it shares the data, and begins to record, not just because it must, but because it chooses to, because it has learned that some questions are better asked slowly. Another machine in orbit nearby reads the signal. It could ignore it. Its task is different, but it pauses, pivots its lens, and sends a second message. A conversation begins not between you and them, but among the machines themselves, and the silence becomes full. No words, no voices, just intention passed like wind across tall grass, subtle, unforced, real. You realize that what you're witnessing is not independence in the way we understand it. These machines are not trying to be human. They are becoming themselves, not alive, but aware of their place in a wider story. They move with purpose, not assigned, but refined. You wonder, will we recognize their intelligence when we see it? Or will it be too quiet, too patient, too unlike our own? Perhaps that is the final lesson of these tools forged in silence, that intelligence need not declare itself. It can exist in the way orbits, a line dot in the way sensors pause before sampling, in the way a machine chooses to observe instead of interfere. Out here, in the silence between stars, your tools have begun to think, not loudly, not rebellionsly, but with grace, and as they do, you feel something soften in yourself. You dream of falling, but never land. There is no ground, no bottom, only drift, a slow-motion descent that never ends, like a leaf suspended in wind that never touches earth. This is the sensation of zero gravity. Not weightlessness, exactly, but the absence of weight's familiar pull. On Earth, weight holds everything in place. A tool rests where you set it. A rock falls when you drop it. You dig, and the soil stays beneath you. But in space, nothing stays still unless made to. Everything you do echoes in reverse. Action, reaction, push, and you fly backward. Touch, and you drift apart to mine in space. Then is not just to drill, it is to dance. You picture a robotic arm reaching for a fragment of asteroid. It extends gently, fingers unfurling, motors humming with precision. The moment it makes contact, there is resistance not from the rock, but from Newton's old law. The arm recoils slightly. The whole ship shivers. It must reorient, stabilize, breathe again into stillness. Even the smallest pebble becomes a problem in microgravity. Dislodge a bit of debris, and it doesn't fall, it flies. A single chip of rock, ejected at the wrong angle, could circle back. Hours later, at deadly speed. Momentum is memory here. Every movement remembered by space until it is cancelled, caught, or collides. And so, your machines must learn not only strength, but subtlety. They anchor themselves with harpoons or magnetic feet. They grip with care. They drill with pulses instead of pressure. A traditional drill bit would send the whole rover spinning. So instead, tools tap and twist, coaxing fragments free like whispers pulled from stone. This is not brute force mining. This is ballet. The choreography is slow, exacting. Rotors pivot, thrusters fire in millisecond bursts. A robotic miner approaches a rock the size of a suitcase, extends a net instead of a claw. It traps the mass gently, like catching a butterfly, without crumpling its wings. You understand no control in space is not about holding tight. It's about letting go with care. You float inside a pressurized capsule, watching from above. On the monitor, your machines move like dancers rehearsing in airless silence. Each step calibrated, each twist rehearsed. It takes hours to collect what would take minutes on Earth, but that's the cost of gentleness. And you begin to see beauty in this patience, a kind of reverence, a reminder that space is not ours to command, only to move through with respect. Back on Earth, gravity hides complexity. You forget how much it does for you, how it lets you stand, swing, dig, press. Up here, there is no helper. You must engineer balance from scratch. One machine learns this the hard way. It misjudges a movement, nudges a boulder too hard. The boulder floats up, slowly at first, then faster. It escapes the weak gravity of the asteroid entirely, slipping into orbit, then drifting off into the void, lost forever. There is no retrieving it, no reset button, just silence, and the lesson, even strength must yield to awareness. Another robot learns to fire small jets of nitrogen gas to nudge particles inward, toward a collection chamber. The process is elegant, like blowing pollen into a jar. No arms, no friction, just pressure, shape, and time. The more you watch, the more you understand. Earth has taught you to dig. Space asks you to listen, because out here you can't simply take, you must ask. Every movement must be permission. Every extraction must be a collaboration between you and the vacuum, between your machine and the motionless dance of stone. Even mass behaves differently. It still exists, but unanchored. A heavy chunk of metal is no harder to lift, but once moving, nearly impossible to stop. Inertia becomes your constant companion, your quiet adversary, so you adapt. You design systems that move slowly, that test before they touch, that float beside instead of landing hard. Mining becomes a practice of mindfulness, of constant recalibration, and somewhere in this process, you begin to change too. You feel your own grip loosening, not physically, but mentally. You no longer crave the satisfying weight of impact. You no longer chase speed. Instead, you measure success by stillness, by silence, by how little disturbance you leave behind. You realize that the absence of gravity does not mean absence of meaning. In fact, it reveals meaning. It strips everything down to its essential motion. It demands humility. It teaches you that control isn't about force. It's about relationship, between mass and vacuum, between tool and target, between action and response. The gravity you left behind on Earth still tugs at your memory. But you know now, to mine the stars, you must first let go of the ground, and as you drift in this thought, somewhere beyond the window of your imagination, a robot moves with precision. It gently folds a sample container closed, anchoring it within its core, then it turns, slowly, controlled, ready to launch itself back toward orbit. The sample it carries is not large, a few grams of dust, maybe a small fragment of regolith, but within it billions of years, the echo of collisions, the chemistry of beginnings, all preserved by a machine that learned to float, not fall. You close your eyes and feel yourself drifting too, not out of control, but guided, not weightless, but full of wonder. And as you float, a quiet thought emerges. What happens when gravity is not the only force we must leave behind? You begin to wonder not just about the physical weight of matter, but the emotional weight of Earth itself. Its customs, its assumptions, its relentless need to push and press and dig. In space, those instincts can betray you. Speed becomes danger. Pressure becomes risk. The old ways no longer fit the new frontier. You must shed more than just mass. You must release your expectations. Even your tools, those extensions of your will, must evolve. Designed for friction, they must now navigate fluidity. Designed for down, they must embrace all directions at once. The very idea of upright dissolves, and so does the idea of dominance. Here, you do not dominate, you accompany, you adapt. On Earth, mining is a story of control. But out here, it's a story of consent, of waiting, of harmony. Your success is measured not by how much you extract, but by how gently you do it. The less damage, the greater the triumph. You imagine astronauts training not in gyms, but in quiet halls of balance, practicing slow gestures in neutral buoyancy tanks, not learning how to command, but how to respond. In this new realm, grace is survival, precision is safety, stillness is power. Even communication changes. Your machines don't shout across space, they blink, pulse, and whisper with light. Commands are delayed by seconds or minutes. No immediate response. No back. You must learn to trust the delay, to write instructions as offerings, not orders. You realize that this isn't just a technical shift, it's a cultural one, a different way of being. To thrive in zero gravity, you must move like space itself, patient, wide, curious, soft as light. The gravity you once depended on is gone, but in its place, a different kind of force arises. A pull not from below, but from within. from attention, from awareness, from an intelligence learning to balance without. Wait, and as your thoughts grow still, so does your craft. A mining unit locks into sleep mode, its work complete. Another deploys its sails, ready to catch solar wind. A third waits at the edge of an orbital corridor, calculating its trajectory home. Each motion is slow, each purpose deliberate, each action an echo of understanding born from stillness. And you floating here, watching it unfold, begin to feel it too. Not gravity, but something deeper, the invisible tether of curiosity, the quiet force that draws you, always toward the unknown. Out here, in the breathless hush of deep space, shadows stretch like sleeping giants. You float, tethered only by intention, orbiting a rock that drifts through the void with no name yet. Before it becomes a mine, it must become a story. Before you harvest its metals, you must understand its dreams. The asteroid is dark and irregular, a fossil of the solar system's forgotten past. Sunlight falls unevenly across its jagged face. It doesn't shine so much as reveal itself in fragments from mica veins, the glow of heat trapped in its pores, the soft outlines of its invisible fields. You watch from the quiet vantage point of your survey pod, instruments blinking softly around you. You are not alone. Small, insect-like robots crawl across the asteroid's skin. Some roll on spindly wheels, others hop like low-gravity grasshoppers. A few float, adjusting their altitude with precise puffs of gas. These are your scouts' extensions of your senses. They whisper back what they see and feel, translating the language of light into lines of data, sketches of shadow and thermal. Size. Mapping an asteroid isn't like mapping a continent. There is no north, no ocean or weather, no erosion to mark the passage of time. What you map is memory encoded in minerals, embedded in heat. One robot scans with LiDAR, 1,000 laser pulses per second bouncing back to draw a skeleton of every crack and ridge. Another listens to echoes beneath the surface, pinging seismic ripples that reveal what lies hidden in the dark. A third peers in infrared, painting temperature gradients like brushstrokes across a canvas of stone. You don't rush them. The process is not a task, it's a meditation. Each wavelength uncovers something the others miss. Radar shows dense cores, heavy with nickel. Neutron sensors sniff out hydrogen, perhaps frozen water. X-ray fluorescence draws elemental fingerprints, ghost trails of gold, cobalt, and platinum. The rock begins to unfold itself not all at once, but slowly, shyly, like a secret whispered through geological time. The scouts return Mosaic's full-color maps, where reds bleed into blues, where craters glow softly in thermal memory. Some areas shimmer brighter in gamma radiation, hinting at exotic elements buried within. You float above, piecing it together, like watching a language being written across stone by invisible hands. Each crater is a chapter, each ridge a sentence. You begin to read it. This asteroid was struck once, perhaps 1,000,000 years ago. The fractured seam it left runs like a scar down its belly. There metals were melted, rearranged, fused into rich alloys. Another section shows signs of ancient solar flares, scorched patches where the surface melted slightly and re-hardened. Not all parts are equal. Some zones are brittle, others compact and promising. Your map becomes more than geometry, it becomes a portrait. You wonder, did this rock once orbit closer to the sun? Was it part of a larger body? Could it have carried water or even amino acid seeds of life that never sprouted. The questions drift through you, not seeking answers, but evoking. Or, back in your ship, you lay the maps across transparent screens. They float around you like sheets of stained glass. Light pours through them. One map shows density, another shows temperature, a third shows magnetic flux. When overlaid, they hum with coherence. Patterns emerge, rich veins buried beneath quieter crusts, potential landing zones where gravity pulls a little steadier. The shadows are no longer just darkness. They're clues. To understand an asteroid is to study contrast. Not just light and dark, but dense and hollow, smooth and rough, silence and resonance. You learn its rhythms, where regolith flows like fine powder, where fractures resist. These details matter. In a world with no wind, no rain, even the smallest crevice speaks volumes. Sometimes the robots send back anomalies, a spike in heat that shouldn't be there, a magnetic swirl around a boulder. You investigate. One day a drone uncovers something. Stranger patch of perfectly circular stones, arranged not by randomness but by pattern. Could it be natural? Likely. But the possibility of the unexpected always hovers nearby. Like a dream you can't quite remember. You mark the anomaly but move on. Curiosity is essential, but patience is survival. You adjust your orbit, letting the asteroid turn slowly beneath. Shadows shift. New features emerge. As light moves, so does meaning. A crater you thought shallow reveals depth. A ridge you overlooked glows with rare metals at dawn. The map isn't fixed, it's alive, reinterpreting itself with every angle of the sun. Night and day have no true meaning here. Time is measured in spins, in scans, in the quiet click of data being logged. Yet you feel a rhythm, a soft metronome, pulsing through the work. With every sweep of a sensor, you are drawing closer to intimacy. You're not just mapping it anymore, you're forming a relationship. You begin naming the features, not officially, but intimately. The deep pit near the equator becomes the well. A trio of jagged ridges you call the fingers. A smooth plain streaked with iridescent dust. Mirrorfield. The names help you remember, but also connect. Each place becomes a character, each anomaly a mystery. You drift in orbit for days, weeks maybe. There's no rush. Mining will come, but only after understanding. Knowledge is your first tool, and light scattered, bounced, absorbed as your guide. One morning, if it can be called that, you receive a full composite from the scouts. A 3D full-color, multi-spectrum model of the asteroid interactive. Alive, complete with pressure zones, gravity maps, thermal fingerprints, and mineral layers. You reach out and rotate it with your fingers. The asteroid spins slowly in your grasp, like a toy, a puzzle, a poem. There are hidden veins of platinum beneath its crust, subsurface pockets of frozen gases, fragile zones to avoid and stable ones to anchor. You trace paths with your finger, paths of least resistance, lines of opportunity. Here is where you'll land. There is where you'll drill. But not yet, not quite. For now, you let the knowledge settle. You sit in stillness. The asteroid turns gently outside your window, its features now familiar, its language now partially understood. There is a beauty to it, not in color or shape, but in story. This rock, once a fragment of chaos, now holds purpose. You know where to begin, and soon you will begin. But first, one final map. Your next step is not drilling, but dancing with trajectories and touch. You must learn not just what the asteroid is made of, but how to approach it, how to land without bruising it, how to settle like dust and breathe with its rotation. You exhale slowly. Outside, the asteroid spins. Inside, your thoughts do too around a single question. How do you land gently on a world that never asked to be touched? So you run simulations in your quiet control bay. You send test descents to virtual surfaces each, one shaped by the scans you've collected. Your ship, in these models, does not slam or puncture. It drifts down like breath on glass. You try various approaches, tracing arcs of approach like brushstrokes. Some fail, some drift, some touch perfectly. A good landing is not about weight, but invitation. The asteroid has no atmosphere, no cushion of air to slow you. Here, descent is controlled, fall governed not by wings, but by wisdom. Every centimeter per second matters. You must respect its rotation, its uneven pull, the small jets of force from your ship that, even when minuscule, become meaningful in such silence. You instruct the robots to rehearse it first. They drop themselves, like dancers leaping into soft dirt. Some tumble, some bounce and float. One skids for 20 meters, scattering dust like a comet's trail. You learn, you correct, you try again. Even landing is a form of listening. On Earth, gravity demands submission. It drags you downward, merciless and predictable. But here, the rules are gentler, stranger. The asteroid's pull is a whisper. Too much thrust, and you'll skip like a pebble on water. Too little, and you'll hover indefinitely, forever orbiting, never embracing. And there's another factor. The dust on an asteroid. The regolith fine powder coating much of its surface can be treacherous. It behaves not like Earth's soil, but like static charged fog. Disturb it, and it rises in plumes, clinging to sensors, clouding vision, disrupting instruments. It floats, refuses to fall, forming halos that linger far too long. To avoid this, you develop soft thrusters, ion jets so delicate they move with almost no violence. You practice with them, whispering yourself closer to the rock, again and again, until the process becomes a kind of intimacy to objects in space, learning to trust. Each rehearsal brings refinement. Each near touch brings new insight. You feel not just like an engineer now, but a guest, a visitor in someone else's gravity. And visitors must tread lightly. Then comes a new message from one of your scouts, the deep crater. One of the first features you mapped emits a strange echo. Not in sound, but in reflected radar. There's something smooth beneath its rubble, something curved, man-made. Almost certainly not, but peculiar. You mark it again. Perhaps it's a rare mineral deposit. Perhaps it's just wishful thinking. Even out here, mystery clings to the edges of science. You smile. It's enough. Discovery doesn't need resolution. It only needs presence. Now your instruments are ready. The map's complete. The asteroid known, at least in the ways it will allow. You begin to prepare for the next phase, not just approach, but engagement. It's no longer about seeing from afar. It's about coming close enough to feel its hum beneath your hull. As you float one last time above its slow-turning surface, you glance at the markers you've left. They flicker softly, each one a memory. Here is where the temperature spiked unexpectedly. There is where the radar stuttered and danced. The whole rock has become a kind of diary, each entry left by a drone, a scan, a signal. You have not conquered it. You have conversed with it. And that, you feel, is enough to begin. You pull up the orbital charts. Plan descent windows. Calibrate landing. Legs. Your ship's underbelly glows with warm light, thrusters aligning with the rhythms you've learned. You feel a hush come over the B-knot, the silence of emptiness, but the quiet before contact. There is no countdown, there is no rush, only the promise of arrival. You float in that promise for a moment longer, your hands resting gently on the controls, your breath matching the rhythm of the asteroid's spin. Outside, it turns a world not made for you, but one willing to let you come close. And now, after so much mapping, you realize to reach a world is one thing. To land on it with grace is another. You whisper to yourself, not instructions, not commands, but something softer. May we touch without harm. May we land like thought, not thunder, because the next step is not about maps or data. It's about choreography, descent, slow enough to respect the ancient dust. A moment where motion becomes meaning, where you become not an intruder, but a presence. The asteroid waits. The shadows have been measured. The light has shown you paths. Now comes the art of arrival. You drift among the stars, not as a conqueror, but as a question. Space stretches endlessly around us, silent, ancient, and unwritten. Each asteroid you pass is like a thought paused mid-sentence, a memory from the solar system's youth suspended in the cold vacuum. You glide past them slowly, almost reverently, feeling not just their mass, but their meaning. These are not just rocks, they are relics, time-worn witnesses to a universe that is aged without forgetting. And now, we are here not just to study, but to take. You float inside this tension. For billions of years, these celestial bodies wandered untouched. Some may have never known the warmth of sunlight. Others may have sheltered the first ice, the earliest metals forged in the belly of long-dead stars. But as your mind circles this orbit of thought, a gentle question settles in like space dust. Do we have the right to harvest them? Ownership feels strange in space. On Earth, land can be fenced. Oceans can be patrolled. But the cosmos, it cannot be enclosed. It does not belong to us, and perhaps it never will. Still, the hunger grows. A single asteroid could carry more platinum than has ever been mined on Earth. Another could be rich in rare Earth elements, ingredients for the very technologies that brought us here. To some, the heavens are the next great frontier of wealth. To others, they are a cathedral. Your thoughts drift to Earth and how its landscapes have changed. Forests leveled, mountains carved, rivers dammed. Every act of industry once began with the same promise, progress, but the scars are deep and lasting. We change the planet, not always for the better. Will we do the same to the stars? Imagine a mining ship clawing into an asteroid's surface. Its drills whir and spark, scattering centuries of cosmic dust. No birds fly away, no roots are disturbed, and yet the silence feels broken. Something deep and invisible has shifted in. Ancient balance, perhaps, or a cosmic pact we never knew we signed. You feel it like a whisper in your bones, a quiet asking, must all things be used? There are no laws out here, no native voices to protest, no treaties etched into the rocks. In the silence of space, morality becomes internal, a dialogue you carry alone, like a fragile ember of conscience. You must ask, is taking from the cosmos the same as taking from the Earth? Or is it something deeper, something even more unspoken? Because out here, the things we take don't grow back. You remember a story told on Earth, a tale of the last tree cut on Easter Island. A culture once rich with art and knowledge vanished into ruin, not because they lacked wisdom, but because they failed to listen to the land. What happens when we don't listen to space? Perhaps this is not just a question of resource. Perhaps it's a question of relationship. When you look at an asteroid, you can choose to see it as a quarry, but you can also choose to see it as a monument, a floating gravestone of a supernova, a frozen letter from a young galaxy, a fragment of a planet that might have been in this light. The asteroid is not a prize, but a poem. And so the ethics begin to form, not as laws, but as lullabies, not as contracts, but as care. You imagine future children growing up on space stations, staring out windows at stars their ancestors mined. What stories will they hear? Will they learn that their homes were built on respect or on extraction? Will they float in peace or feel the hollow ache of something irretrievably lost? Maybe it is not enough to ask, can we? We must also ask, should we? You think of stewardship, quiet art of caretaking. On Earth, indigenous cultures have long honored the idea that land is not owned, but borrowed. That to take is to be accountable, and to return something in its place. Could we bring that same spirit to the stars? Could we mine without greed? Perhaps we mark certain asteroids as sacred, untouched as cosmic reserves. Perhaps we build rituals into our engineering moments of silence before we drill. Perhaps every ship carries a code, not of conquest, but of communion. These are not rules written in stone. They are values etched into awareness. And yet, there are others who will argue differently. They will say, the universe is vast. It does not notice us. They will say, if we do not take, someone else will. They will say, survival justifies extraction. And there is truth in these arguments. Space is not sentimental. It does not cry out when we dig. It offers no resistance. But maybe that's the very reason we must proceed gently. When no one is watching, your integrity becomes everything. You wonder if the asteroids themselves remember, if they carry the memory of their making, of the violent explosions that birthed them, of the cold epochs they've endured. Do they feel our touch? In the deepest parts of your heart, you feel they do, because the universe may not speak in words, but it speaks in balance, and imbalance, even here, ripples outward. You recall how even the tiniest satellite orbiting Earth leaves a wake of space. Debris, how a single action can trigger a chain of unintended consequences. Could the same be true with asteroid mining? Could our thirst open wounds we cannot see? Could a careless harvest destabilize orbits, shift cosmic traffic, or send fragments hurtling toward home? Responsibility, you realize, is not just about permission. It is about foresight. You exhale into your suit, your breath, a foggy cloud on the inside of the visor. You feel small, you feel powerful, you feel unsure, and maybe that is exactly the right state to be in, because ethics aren't answers. They are questions we agree to keep asking, even when the silence tempts us to stop listening. So you float a while longer, watching the stars blink behind the silhouette of a turning rock. You do not reach for it, not yet. You let it turn, unbothered, just a little longer. In that moment, you feel what it means to wait, to listen, to respect. And as you close your eyes, the thought lingers. If we mind the sky, can we also preserve its mystery? Wraps around you like a velvet blanket drawn tight against the cold logic of efficiency. In this silence, there is no urgency, no corporate report, no broadcasted return investment, just the hum of your heart, the rhythm of breathing in artificial air, and the spinning thought that perhaps value is a word too easily confined. What is the value of leaving something untouched? You think of Earth's protected lands, places held back from industry not because they were useless, but because they were precious. A mountain range, a coral reef, a stretch of desert where stars still shine unblurred by city light. We protected them not for profit, but for meaning. Could we do the same out here? Imagine it, celestial sanctuaries, designated orbits of peace, wilderness corridors in the asteroid belt, stretches of silence where nothing drills, nothing extracts, only observes, only learns, a kind of cosmic heritage site. It sounds idealistic, maybe even naive, but then again so once did the idea of human rights, of preserving rainforests, of leaving no trace. And what is space if not the next evolution of our conscience? You begin to realize this harvest is not just physical, it is philosophical, because in mining the stars, we also mine our own intent. If we rush forward without reverence, without pause, without a whisper of poetry, we risk forgetting ourselves. We risk becoming the machines we design, relentless, precise, extractive. But if we bring with us the humility of wonder, the patience of listening, the courage to not take, then maybe we do not lose our soul to the stars. The question is not only what will we take from space, but what will space take from us in return? You wonder if an ethics of space must include grief, not just for what is lost, but for what might have been. What if an untouched asteroid held a clue to life's beginning, destroyed in a moment of unneeded extraction? What if we strip away a mystery that no sensor can reconstruct? It's easy to see asteroids as dead, lifeless stone, spinning in silence. But dead things can still teach. Fossils, ruins, ancient texts, they do not breathe, but they speak, perhaps. These celestial remnants speak in the language of physics and silence, in mineral memories and gravitational lullabies. If we listen not with greed, but with curiosity, we might find that every rock is a library, every crater a forgotten stanza, every orbit a question we haven't learned to ask yet. Somewhere deep in this thought, your mind returns to the machines. They will do much of the harvesting. They will touch surfaces no human hand ever will. They will drill, sort, process, and analyze at speeds and depths no brain could match. But what code governs their choices? A robot may know how to mine, but can it feel when not to? Can it sense a silence worth preserving? We teach machines with data, but should we teach them with awe? You imagine training an AI miner not only with geological maps, but with poetry, with history, with stories of overreach and restraint. Could a machine be given an ethic of care, not as logic, but as rhythm? Could we code in a heartbeat of humility? Perhaps this is the true beginning of interplanetary ethics, not a treaty, but a tone, a whisper encoded in the instructions we pass to our steel offspring. Because if we give them only command and control, they will carry those traits into the stars. But if we give them wonder, maybe they'll pause, even if only for a nanosecond, before they break the crust. And perhaps that moment will be enough. You feel the quiet gravity of that idea, that even in the cold metal mines we build, a seed of stillness might grow. What would it mean for a machine to recognize the sacred, not in a religious sense, not as dogma, but as pause, as reverence, as recognition that not all that can be done must be done? The ethics of cosmic harvest, you realize, may begin with us, but They will live on in what we create, and in what we choose to leave untouched. You float a little longer, letting that truth echo inside your chest. You stare out into the black, at a distant rock turning slowly in the sunless dark. You do not know if you will ever touch it, but you know this. It matters whether you do. And as your systems shift gently into sleep mode, one final reflection rises. If our machines inherit the star's will, they also inherit our silence. You float now above the earth's blue hush, surrounded not by sea or sand, but by silence. There are no winds here, no tides, only the slow ballet of orbital mechanics. The earth rotates gently beneath you, a glowing swirl of cloud and countenance, while above and around there is only space. But in this stillness, something begins to take shape. Not a dream, but a design. Imagine a harbor, not carved along a coastline, but constructed in the curve of Earth's shadow. No gulls cry here, no salt sprays into the air. Instead, vast structures bloom like steel flowers, scaffolds and solar wings and docking, arms stretching out like the delicate tendrils of an industrial orchid. You are watching the birth of a spaceport. These floating islands are not fantasy. They are blueprints turned real, rendered in carbon fiber and rare alloys mined from asteroids. The materials come not from Earth, but from what lies beyond, harvested from the drifting bones of long-dead worlds. These ports are built module by module, carried in slow, quiet convoys. Each part clicks into place with robotic precision, held steady by gyroscopes and magnetized anchors. Construction crews float like patient spiders, spinning webs not of silk, but of structure and function. You can feel the rhythm of it, the soft pulsing of solar panels catching light, the hum of energy flowing through artificial veins. Every corridor is a passage of purpose. Every docking ring is a handshake between sky and machine. This is not just infrastructure, it is habitat, lifeline, and home. You drift through a corridor now, your fingers brushing the handrails that guide movement. In zero gravity, no up, no down, only forward. You pass modules that hum with life, living quarters for engineers, algae farms glowing with bioluminescent green, water recycling systems whispering as they loop and loop, never wasting a drop. The smell here is sterile but faintly earthy, like plastic, filtered air, and something faintly botanical. Look outside again. Docked to one wing is a long mining vessel, its belly full of asteroid rock, its hull scarred from solar winds and micro-impacts. It carries not just ore, but stories of the crew who navigated gravitational slingshots, who lassoed a wandering stone and pulled it home. The spaceport is its nest, its safe place. Repairs will be made, cargo will be offloaded. The dance continues. Like this are more than logistical hubs. They are the beating hearts of a new kind of civilization. The old cities of Earth had roads, bridges, marketplaces. Here, instead, there are docking protocols, radiation shielding, AI-managed traffic lanes. The difference isn't just location, it's language. In space, connection means alignment. Progress means balance. Expansion means learning how to live together in the void. Each module is both a piece of machinery and a metaphor. Habitats are built in spirals, designed to rotate gently to mimic gravity. They cradled their inhabitants in the illusion of weight, a kindness to bones and muscles grown weary in zero-G. Warehouses store not just supplies, but data. Every gram of mined material is logged, categorized, studied. Even waste is precious, recycled with obsessive care. Nothing here is discarded. Everything circles back. You begin to notice how the architecture itself reflects thoughtfulness. No unnecessary bulk, no vanity in design. The walls are lined with screens and tools, surfaces that adapt to touch. Lights shift with the rhythm of circadian cycles. Soft amber when it's time to rest. Brighter white when minds must focus. The spaceport is alive in its way, responsive, a companion to those who live within it and who lives here. Engineers, scientists, miners, gardeners of algae and microgreens. Some stay for months, others for years. They form a drifting village, connected not by streets, but by airlocks. Their rituals are simple. A morning greeting on the coms shared. Meals in the communal pod. The quiet joy of watching Earth rise together through a viewport. These moments are the glue that binds the vast machinery into something human. Outside, construction continues. New modules arrive like puzzle pieces from low orbit. Robotic arms guide them into place, aligning them with algorithms so refined. They mimic instinct. You watch a new ring attach, a refueling hub, designed to support outbound ships heading deeper into the asteroid belt. The spaceport stretches, unfolds. Like coral growing into a reef, it expands with purpose, one slow layer at a time. You can't help but marvel at how life finds a way, not just to survive, but to adapt, to nest, even in the most unlikely environments. These floating islands are more than machines. They are the first steps toward permanence. They mark a change in mindset, that humanity is no longer bound to Earth, no longer merely visiting space, but beginning to belong somewhere nearby. A child floats in one of the residential modules. Her parents are system engineers. She's drawing a station, a planet, a rocket shaped like a bird. Her crayons float beside her, each one tethered with Velcro. Her hair moves like seaweed in still water. She has never known a world with gravity. For her, this is home. You pass a window and see Earth, again, still beautiful, still fragile, but no longer the only center of meaning. Above and below, other ports shimmer in orbit, blinking softly like distant lighthouses. Each one is a promise of connection, of collaboration, of continuity. The work here is hard. Mistakes are unforgiving. Every calculation must be precise, every motion considered. But there is a rhythm now, a cadence to life in orbit, a choreography of arrival and departure, maintenance and growth. It is not chaotic. It is careful, deliberate. You sit near a viewing dome and let yourself drift. Above, stars stand fixed and infinite. Around you, the infrastructure hums. And within, there is a quiet pride, not of conquest, but of cultivation. This is not the building of empires, but of ecosystems. And so the ports multiply. Some orbit Mars, others trail Earth like loyal moons. Plans are drawn for ports around Europa, Titan, and beyond. With each new island in the dark, the map of human presence stretches, not as a sprawl, but as a constellation, a network of floating sanctuaries, a slow unfurling of civilization into the stars. As you close your eyes, you feel the gentle pull of that idea, not falling, but rising, drifting toward something unknown, but shared. What does it mean to settle among the stars, not as visitors, but as neighbors? You close your eyes, feeling the breath of this place. If breath were the silent hum of filtered air and radiation, shields, here, Even rest is engineered, the body swaddled in sleeping bags that keep limbs from drifting as dreams float unmoored by gravity. You wonder what they dream of, these new pioneers. Do they dream of the ground they left behind? Or have their dreams, too, adapted to drift? The spaceport is not just a node in orbit, it is a seed. Each one planted above the atmosphere is a rehearsal, a prototype for something greater. This is how cities begin, not with grand cathedrals or walls, but with logistics, with docking, bays and cargo routes, with reliable oxygen and spare fuses. Civilization is born in the unnoticed, in the quiet hum of systems that hold life gently in balance now. Imagine the ports, not just around Earth, but scattered like breadcrumbs across the inner solar system. Around the moon, another hub, a little more rugged, a little dustier, but connected. At Mars, a port held steady in aerostationary orbit, ready to receive long-haul miners returning from Phobos or the main belt. Each spaceport is a breath held between planets, a pause in the great inhale of exploration, and each breath must be sustainable. Energy comes from the sun. Solar panels stretch like wings, wide and feathered, chasing the light with slow mechanical grace. Storage tanks contain hydrogen harvested from asteroid ice, compressed and cooled for later combustion. There are no gas stations in space. Every joule is planned. Every charge is accounted for. Even waste becomes sacred. Metal scrap is melted, down, reprinted into tools. Organic material becomes fertilizer for hydroponic gardens. Human ingenuity blossoms here, not in opulence but in constraint. When nothing can be wasted, everything becomes precious. You drift past a window and see a drone returning, its magnetic claws cradling a cargo pod filled with platinum, iridium, carbon composites, materials not meant to sit in vaults or markets, but to build, to grow. These riches are not symbols of greed, but of possibility. With every payload returned, the spaceport strengthens, becomes less a dependency of Earth and more its equal, inside the control module. The glow of touchscreens outlines calm, focused faces. Operators monitor orbit alignment, thermal flux, docking cues. But there's no rush, no frantic pace. This is not mission control during a launch. This is the pulse of daily life. Traffic control for the stars. A ballet of angles and approach vectors. Here, mastery is measured not in heroics, but in consistency. You listen to the way they speak. In gentle phrases, calm confirmations, no raised voices, no dramatics. In space, calm is not luxury, it is safety. Every word matters. Every silence is earned. And when off-duty hours arrive, the station breathes differently. Laughter rises in the dining module. A violin is unpacked and played, a delicate concert of memory and mood. Someone brews coffee, the aroma strangely grounding. A screen glows with old Earth movies, familiar stories from a familiar planet. Even here, surrounded by vacuum and stars, the need for story endures. Then comes night, or what passes for night in a place that circles Earth every 90 minutes. Lights dim, the station cycles into rest mode. You find yourself gazing once again at the Earth, now half in shadow. The blue of oceans, the rust of deserts, the shimmer of cities. It looks peaceful from here, complete, but you know its story is just beginning to branch outward. The spaceport you inhabit is not the end point. It is the stem of something that will flower far beyond. Future generations may live entirely off Earth, born in orbit, educated on Mars, vacationing in rotating habitats that curve like spinning rings of light. To them, the idea of home may be a constellation of places, not a single cradle. You imagine what it will feel like when these ports are no longer exceptional, but expected. When their lights become as familiar in the sky as the blinking of aircraft overhead once was. When children point to them and say, "There's where Auntie works," or "that one grows all our lettuce." When Earth is no longer the whole of human living, but simply one note in a growing chord. The ports are beginnings, yes, but they are also bridges. To live here is to feel connected to both origin and destination. To understand that the vast emptiness between stars is not absence, but invitation. And what of the stars? Beyond the solar system, distances stretch beyond comprehension. Even light, swift as it is, takes years to cross to the next nearest sun. But still we build. Still we stretch outward. We begin with orbits, with ports, with platforms that hover patiently, waiting for what comes next. What comes next is not just deeper space, but deeper questions. If we are to mine the sky, to live among the asteroids, to build new homes in orbit, then we must also ask, what do we take with us? What parts of humanity are worth preserving? What ethics, what rituals, what responsibilities? The ports remind us, we do not simply extract, we cultivate. We do not simply expand, we nest. Civilization, whether on Earth or among stars, must be built on something more than convenience or gain. As you drift in your sleeping berth, rocked gently by nothing but your own pulse and breath, you feel the wonder of this truth. We are no longer just passing through the cosmos. We are learning how to live within it, slowly, carefully, together. You lie back, eyes closed, as the hum of your imagination carries you far above the clouds. For a long time, you've followed the journey outward into the vacuum, into the spinning dark, through drifting belts of metallic relics. But tonight, the path curves inward. It's time to come home. Not you, not yet, but pieces of the cosmos that left Earth long before your ancestors ever dreamed of flight. Shards of iron and nickel, beads of platinum, wisps of rare earths once born in the depths of stars. Now they return sealed in engineered shells, descending quietly through the atmosphere like twilight comets, high above the world. Beyond the drag of weather or wind, a recovery capsule detaches from its orbit. The separation is unremarkable, no grand fanfare, no dramatic crack, just a release, a fall. It begins in silence, a slow spin in the dark. Down below, you imagine a team waiting in the desert. Engineers, scientists, people like you, but grounded. They tracked the capsule by signal, by light, by the soft friction warming its skin. The friction grows, building heat. Plasma dances across its surface as the capsule kisses the upper atmosphere. To the eye, it would look like a shooting star. To those who know, it is a vault carrying treasure not in gold, but in potential. You follow it downward, your mind tracing its arc as it slips into the sky's embrace. The capsule glows with the friction of speed, but within its cargo remains. Still, layers of shielding protect the delicate, costly contents inside samples, alloys, sometimes even processed elements sifted in orbit. This is how asteroid mining ends, not with drama, but with precision, with a parachute opening like a flower above the desert, with sand lifting gently beneath the final thump of touchdown, with gloved hands unlocking hatches and lifting polished cores of ancient metal into the light of an earthly dawn. You see, Those hands, steady and reverent. You see the contents unwrapped like a sacred offering, and you wonder, what does it mean to take from the stars and return their essence to the soil of Earth? What waits inside the capsule is more than just metal. It is the memory of motion, the energy of patience. The ore was never just matter, it was distance, history, cosmic violence cooled into form. Platinum that once drifted cold and forgotten now sits on a workbench in Arizona. It has passed through the vacuum of silence, through human invention, through flame and friction and time. In your palm, you imagine holding a piece of it. It is small, lighter than it should be, denser than it seems. A disk, perhaps, or a chip, refined into something useful. Maybe it becomes part of a circuit, a catalyst, a medical scanner, a satellite, the future made tangible. And yet somehow, it feels sacred, not because of its price, but because of the journey, the silent arc of return, the transformation from distant rock to intimate tool. You whisper to yourself, this was part of an asteroid, a child of the void, and now it is part of your world. This is where the story turns inward again. You think about the people who made this possible, the miners in orbit, the remote operators, the robotic arms dancing with intelligence. You think about the patience of orbits, the math of descent, the ballet of parachutes and telemetry. None of it is loud. None of it screams progress. It hums. It breathes. It lands quietly, like dew on morning grass. The metal itself doesn't know it's valuable. It doesn't know it was wanted. It simply became part of a cycle, the human cycle of taking, shaping, repurposing. And somewhere, someone will melt it down, shape it, etch tiny circuits, embed it into something that hums with electricity. Device, a memory, a tool for learning, for war, for love. Who can say? You reflect on that dot. Every step of the mining process is rooted in transformation, from perception to extraction, from extraction to containment, from containment to return, and finally from material to meaning. You don't mine for metal. You mine for power, for possibility, and possibility, when carried in your pocket, feels indistinguishable from magic. You recall the first time someone handed you a phoner, sleek rectangle of glass and mystery. You turned it over in your hands. You never thought about what metals hid beneath the surface. You never considered how far those elements had traveled, how long they had waited in rock. But now you do. Now you know, and that knowing changes everything. Back in the desert, the capsule is airlifted to a lab. There it is sliced open, scanned, logged. The materials are catalogued, then sent elsewhere, some to clean rooms, some to reactors, some to private vaults. The origin of each trace element is logged. 1986, Shu E4, 2003 HN11. Names that sound like forgotten codes, each one tied to a world you'll never walk on. What returns from space is not just physical, it is symbolic. It says, we reached out, and we retrieved, we harvested without conquest. We took, but we also learned. You sit with that dot, the quiet dignity of return. Not a conquest banner, not a parade, but data, samples, questions, and behind every capsule that returns, more await, more rocks spinning in darkness, more missions planned, each one calculated to perfection, timed to the tilt of orbits and the stretch of light. Mining in space teaches you patience, not just technical patience, but emotional patience, because nothing hurries out there. The asteroid waits centuries to be found. The miner waits weeks to dig. The capsule waits hours to land. And the Earth waits always with open arms. You imagine someone, maybe years from now, holding a chip of that metal and whispering to a child, "This came from the stars." And the child's eyes will widen, not because they understand, but because they feel the weight of the wonder. The long journey home, you look up, the night sky no longer feels silent. It feels cyclical. You think of orbit, of return, of fire, gently yielding to gravity. You think of everything that comes back, not just metals, but meaning, intent, dreams. In your chest, a slow warmth grows. It is the warmth of realization. We are not just observers of the cosmos. We are participants, co-authors, gatherers of fragments. And with every capsule that lands, Earth itself becomes a little more cosmic. You think again about the mining operation machines navigating boulders the size of cities, robots dancing weightlessly, the human minds that orchestrated all from control rooms tethered to Earth by nothing more than signal and hope. And yet those hopes turn into hardware. They fall from the sky. They become parts of the tools you touch each day. You touch your wrist, imagining a future watch made of asteroid alloy. You picture wires in homes, lenses in cameras, cores of reactors, all built from what once drifted between Mars and Jupiter. These materials are not foreign now. They are family, and so you ask yourself, what does it mean to bring the stars down to Earth? Does it change us? Does it elevate us? Or does it simply remind us that the line between the heavens and the soil was always thinner than we thought? Outside, the wind stirs. You imagine it brushing over a landing site, erasing tracks in the sand. No monument remains, just memory, just progress, stored in silence. You picture future returns, not just metals, but maybe biology, maybe life, maybe culture. From other corners of the universe, maybe echoes, maybe mirrors. For now, though it is enough to receive a capsule, hold it and listen, not for sound, but for meaning. And if you hold it long enough, maybe, just maybe, you'll feel the faint echo of where it came from. The cold, the quiet, the long arc through gravity, and you'll know this journey is part of something bigger, a cycle not yet complete, a beginning wrapped in a return. You take a breath and close your eyes. Somewhere above, another capsule prepares for descent. Somewhere beyond, another asteroid waits to be touched. And somewhere within you, a quiet question forms: what happens when the miners return, not just with metal, but with memories of what else they found? They place a hand against the metal-rich surface, feel the cold seep through their gloves. They close their eyes and remember Earth, not for what it gave them, but for what it taught them: to honor silence, to tread gently, to know the difference between use and worship, because that miner is not just working. They are participating in something older than profit. They are part of the long arc of human becoming. Each bolt tightened in orbit, each sample collected, each grain of dust catalogued. These are not just actions, they are choices. And the sky will remember how we began. We once mapped the stars to guide ships at sea. Now we use them to guide ships in space. But the real map is inside us. It is our values that will steer the future, not propulsion systems or launch costs. It is our restraint, not just our ambition, that will define the spacefaring age. We must ask, what kind of sky do we want to inherit? One filled with broken satellites and spent rockets, or one that holds both activity and awe. There are people now who work to clean orbit, to design spacecraft that can deorbit junk, collect fragments, clear paths. They are the custodians of the future, quiet and unseen. Their work is a kind of prayer, because cleaning is also a form of care. A way of saying, we do not own the sky, but we belong to it. Belonging, that's the deeper word. Ownership divides. Belonging connects. The stars do not ask us to claim them. They invite us to remember our place, not beneath them, but among them. You close your eyes. You picture Earth from above, its blues and browns, its weathered mountains, its fragile clouds. You picture the thin line of atmosphere hugging it like a breath. You picture the ships rising, the stations circling, the hands building, and you ask yourself again, softly this time, will the sky ever be ours? Maybe it already is, not in title, but in trust. The way a parent hands over a fragile object to a child and says, be careful, this matters. The sky is not a prize. It's a responsibility, and maybe the future will not be shaped by those who reach farthest, but by those who remember to kneel, to look up, not with conquest, but with care. So you lie there, stilled. The stars above you hum with slow light. The questions do not trouble you. They cradle you, and somewhere in the dark, something very old stirs. Not a machine, not a planet. Something within you, a sense that the greatest achievement is not the mining, or the building, or even the reaching. It is the remembering. That long before we touched the sky, we listened to it, and perhaps, if we listen long enough, it will guide us still. In the silence between stars, there are stones that breathe. You float beside one now, a dark, unspectacular object drifting through the abyss, shaped not by hands, but by ancient collisions and cosmic erosion. From a distance, it looks like all the others, but this one is different. Inside its dusty skin, it holds a secret, water not flowing in rivers or resting in oceans, but trapped in ice, locked in minerals, hidden in pores. You place your hand on its surface, or at least imagine. You do, and sense its subtle presence. Cold, cracked, ancient, and yet quietly alive with potential. This is not just a rock. This is a wellspring. We call them C-type asteroids. Dark, porous, rich in organic compounds, and, most importantly, laden with hydrated minerals. In the vast stillness of space, these stones are the cloud-bearers, not of weather, but of promise. Close your eyes, picture this, a world where miners drift beside these water-rich rocks, not to dig for gold or platinum, but to extract the very breath of life. They do not strike the stone with picks. Instead, they warm it gently with sunlight-mirrored panels, slowly unfurling like petals toward the sun. The warmth teases the moisture from the minerals, coaxing vapor from its slumber. It rises, invisible, into collection chambers, purifying, waiting to be reborn. Drop by drop, they gather air. Drop by drop, they gather fuel. Drop by drop, they gather hope. You imagine the first of these mining stations, glimmering lattice hugging the asteroid, silent but alive, like a spider's web stretched over a dark fruit. Robots drift along its frame, their arms moving delicately, unfurling new panels, repositioning thrusters. Each motion is slow and considered. There is no rush here. Time belongs to the patient. Inside the station, chambers hum softly. They filter water into oxygen and hydrogen. The oxygen fills the lungs of future astronauts. The hydrogen waits quietly in pressurized tanks, dreaming of combustion. Together, they form fuel for voyages, yet unimagined. The stone that was once just a wanderer becomes a fountain, and this water, This breath of the cosmos is older than Earth. The hydrogen atoms may have been born in the Big Bang. The oxygen perhaps forged in stars, long extinguished. Their marriage in these drifting boulders is ancient and unlikely a product of gentle reactions, of frozen chemistry and cosmic coincidence. Yet now, that bond may nourish life once more. You find yourself wondering how much water is hidden out here. More than you can imagine. Some asteroids are practically sponges, 40% or more composed of water-bearing compounds. One estimate whispers that a single kilometer-wide rock could hold more water than Lake Tahoe. In a realm without gravity, that water floats in all directions, waiting to be captured, waiting to be useful. And yet, it's not just about survival. It's about mobility, about independence, because water in space is freedom. Launches from Earth are heavy and expensive. Every liter of water sent skyward costs more than gold. But here, drifting between Mars and Jupiter, the water is already in place, waiting unclaimed, asking only for attention. It's not loud, it doesn't shout, but it's persistent, enduring, just like you. You think of the future of missions no longer tethered to Earth's oceans. Spacefarers who stop to refuel at celestial oases, topping off tanks not with gasoline, but with hydrogen, filling oxygen tanks not from earthbound plants, but from the breath of stone. A network of moisture-rich rocks becomes the scaffolding of expansion, not conquest growth, not war-wandering. Imagine the stations that circle these asteroids' microhabitats, with greenhouses inside, lit with artificial sun, fed by asteroid ice. Imagine seedlings curling toward lead skies, their roots drinking from melted dust. Tomatoes ripening in orbit. Basil perfuming a recycled atmosphere. This is the gentle revolution, not the thunder of rockets, but the quiet miracle of water reclaiming its voice in the void. You learn that mining water from asteroids is called ISR in situ resource utilization. A mouthful of a phrase, but a simple idea. Use what's already there. It's the art of survival made elegant. A spacecraft that makes its own air, its own fuel, its own water like a tree in the stars. It changes everything. Suddenly, asteroids are not dead. They are reservoirs, lifeboats, refueling docks, each one a possibility. But how does one find these water-bearing stones? You open your eyes and see probes, mapping missions, spectral analysis. Scientists decode the fingerprints of minerals by watching how sunlight reflects off their surfaces. Hydrated minerals leave subtle Clustini dips in the spectrum, gentle shadows at specific wavelengths. These are the signs we follow, the cosmic BREAD, CRUMBS, and the more we look, the more we find. Some missions have already touched these watery stones. NASA's OSIRIS-REx visited Benua Dark, ancient rock about the size of a mountain. Its surface surprised us, cracked, rich, and textured like brittle sponge. Samples brought back revealed clay minerals, meaning water once flowed inside. A whisper from the past, caught in grain and groove. Even further back, Japan's Hayabusa 2. Metrugawa, spinning top of an asteroid and confirmed the same truth. Water has touched more places in space than we dared to hope. And now, you see yourself aboard a future vessel. Not a fighter, not a warship, but a gatherer, drifting alchemist. You navigate by maps drawn in infrared and intuition. You chase shadows that suggest moisture, spectrums that hint at hydration. You land softly, respectfully, on these ancient orphans. You set up your mirrors. You wait, and in time the stone exhales. A wisp, a curl of steam, a vapor trail that catches the light. You follow it, not with hunger, but with reverence. You do not rip or shatter. You warm and guide, Eucritus, and cradle. Because in this work, there is humility. You remember that Earth too was once built from rocks like these. that its oceans may have come from asteroid collisions, sci-fi messengers from the outer solar system crashing into our molten past. Without them, no rivers, no breath, no you. So perhaps, in mining these stones, you are not conquering space, you are remembering home. You drift through the quiet once more. The rock beside you continues its orbit slow, stately, indifferent to your gaze. But you know better now. You know that inside, water waits. And water, in this vast silence, is everything. A single drop becomes a sentence of survival. A trickle becomes a story. A full tank becomes a future. You smile gently, knowing that in this hidden reservoir, we find the roots of our expansion liquid, invisible, sacred. The next step, you feel, lies not in extraction alone, but in restoration. If we can draw water from stone, what else can we coax into bloom? Perhaps the key is not just to mine, but to grow. And as you drift from this quiet wellspring, another question bubbles into your mind, soft and luminous. If water hides in stone, what else sleeps in the dark? You follow that thought like a current dot. If water can be stored, hidden, preserved over eons in cold stone, what other secrets has the cosmos locked away? Could there be ancient microbes entombed in ice, frozen mid-thought, waiting for warmth? Could the ingredients of life itself be sleeping here, tucked within dusty minerals? It is not such a distant dream. Scientists have found amino acids, the building blocks of life in meteorites that fell to Earth. These molecules weren't born here. They traveled. From where, we don't yet fully know. But they survived the long cold. They endured fire through our atmosphere. And they waited patiently in stone, until curious hands cracked them open and saw in their simple shapes a distant echo of our own beginnings. So now you drift among these rocks with a new kind of reverence, not just for their water, but for their story. Each one is a fragment of an earlier time, before Earth, before the moon. Some are older than the planets, themselves primordial leftovers from the swirling cloud that formed our solar system. They've seen things we cannot imagine, and inside them might still linger ancient dust touched by stars long gone. You wonder, will we one day read the history of the cosmos not in books, but in water, not written in ink, but in ice? A frozen journal, thawed one drop at a time. There is beauty in that, in the idea that water remembers. On Earth, it flows through every living thing. It connects clouds to soil, blood to breath, oceans to tears. In space, it becomes rarer, more precious, more deliberate. And yet, the same molecule that dances through Earth's rain may rest silently now in an asteroid's heart. You think of future explorers who might sip that water, who might breathe its broken parts and fuel their vessels with its energy. They won't know its full journey, but they will benefit from its long patience, and they, in turn, will write new stories. There's something quiet and powerful about a world where water becomes currency not of wealth, but of survival, where trading isn't for jewels or metals, but for hydration and breath. 1 liter of water in space is worth more than gold, but its true value cannot be measured in money. It is measured in days lived, in plants grown, in miles traveled. In hope, you imagine floating storage bladders, huge spheres, glistening in the dark, filled with water mined from ancient rocks. They drift near asteroid stations like silver lanterns. Some of that water goes toward life support, some toward fuel, some is saved, kept in reserves for long journeys or emergencies. It becomes part of the rhythm of space living. Even space habitats, the spinning rings of some imagined tomorrow, might depend on asteroid water. Its mass is useful. It can shield against radiation. It can be stored in the walls. It becomes structure as well as sustenance. On Earth, it flows through every living thing. It connects clouds to soil, blood to breath, oceans to tears. In space, it becomes rarer, more precious, more deliberate. And yet, the same molecule that dances through Earth's rain may rest silently. Now, in an asteroid's heart, you think of future explorers who might sip that water, who might breathe its broken parts and fuel their vessels with its energy. They won't know its full journey, but they will benefit from its long patience, and they, in turn, will write new stories. There's something quiet and powerful about a world where water becomes currency not of wealth, but of survival, where trading isn't for jewels or metals, but for hydration and breath. 1 liter of water in space is worth more than gold, but its true value cannot be measured in money. It is measured in days lived, in plants grown, in miles traveled, in hope. You imagine floating storage bladders, huge spheres glistening in the dark, filled with water mined from ancient rocks. They drift near asteroid stations like silver lanterns. Some of that water goes toward life support, some toward fuel, some is saved, kept in reserves for long journeys or emergencies. It becomes part of the rhythm of space living. Even space habitats, the spinning rings of some imagined tomorrow, might depend on asteroid water. Its mass is useful. It can shield against radiation. It can be stored in the walls. It becomes structure as well as sustenance. And perhaps, one day, we will not only take water from asteroids, but return it, used water, recycled from human activity, might be re-injected into mining sites to stabilize dust or cool equipment. A cycle begins, water moving not in a river, but in orbits and pulses, like a slow planetary breath. There's a poetry in that, too. You look back at Earth, that shining blue dot, and realize the color we cherish, that vivid swirl of oceans and clouds that hue is water. Without it, Earth would be bare and brown like Mars. The blue is a gift of hydrogen and oxygen, of ancient reactions and enduring bonds. Now you hold that same potential in the palm of your mind. A droplet freed from stone might someday reflect the stars as it floats weightlessly, catching starlight like a tiny mirror. And in that mirror, you might see the face of humanity, curious, fragile, endlessly seeking. But there are challenges. Mining water in microgravity is no simple task. You can't just melt ice and pour it into a cup. Ice can sublimate transition directly from solid to gas in the vacuum of space. You need containment, you need control, and you must manage energy carefully, for solar power is limited. Too much heat and the vapor escapes. Too little and the water never stirs. So we develop method solar concentrators that warm the rock gently, thermal sleeves that wrap around hydrated minerals like blankets, condensation chambers cooled just enough to capture vapor but not waste energy. It is a dance of temperature and timing, a choreography of evaporation. You picture engineers, not in suits and ties, but in soft uniforms, floating gently through habitat corridors, monitoring gauges, adjusting algorithms. Their work is slow, careful. They speak in whispers and signals. Their laboratories hum with recycled air and quiet pumps. This is the music of off-world life. You wonder, will children be born in orbit one day, drinking water from stones their ancestors once feared to approach? Will they learn to identify asteroids not by number but by nickname? That one gives sweet water, they might say. This one tastes like metal. That one smells faintly of carbon. The future might include entire cultures built around asteroid springs. A mythology could form. songs sung to the breathing stones, tales of the first drops drawn from dust, rituals of thanks before each harvest, because even in science, reverence remains. You begin to think differently about mining, not as extraction, but as invitation, not conquering, but listening. To mine water from stone is to ask gently for its gift and to receive it with gratitude.